There are places on the map where the economy doesn't start in the marketplace. It starts in the sand and in the distance. Today, I want to show you how geography can doom an entire country and what can still be done when you were born far from everything. The curse of the map: when we think of global trade, we imagine agreements, technology, diplomacy, but there is something older than all of that deciding who prospers. The address: look at the United States. Two doors to the world, the Atlantic and the Pacific. If one side closes, the other still breathes. That keeps roots, prices, and jobs alive. Now think of those with only one door, like Brazil facing the Atlantic, or Chile on the Pacific. Growth is possible, of course, but any bottleneck becomes a national problem. And then there are countries born with no doors at all, and everything, absolutely everything, becomes more expensive. When a port is missing, a port is like a transformer of economic energy. It connects producers to customers. The farther you are from the sea, the higher the insurance, the freight, the time lost at borders, and in the end, it's the consumer who pays in bread, in fuel, in medicine. With two coasts, the U.S. spreads risk and sustains trillions of dollars in trade every year. Ships enter through Los Angeles, leave through New York, and cross the country by rail and river. Its redundancy, its resilience, its employment. With one coast, bottlenecks concentrate. Strikes, storms, shallow ports. Everything hits harder. Trade continues, but it breathes with only one lung. The case of Chad is not just a country with no access to the sea. It is a country surrounded by natural barriers. To the north, the Sahara Desert covers almost half the territory. A sea of sand and rock where almost nothing grows, where cities are rare and transport is harsh. To the south begins the Sahel, a belt of unstable climate. One year it rains enough, the next year drought wipes the fields, and in the middle of it all, the Tibesti Mountains rise in the far north. Remote, rugged, almost cut off from the rest of the nation. Beautiful on a map, but a huge obstacle to infrastructure. Roads are scarce, railways practically non-existent. The result is a country divided by its own geography. Deserts that kill agriculture, mountains that split communities, and a climate that gives no guarantee of harvest. Now add to that the fact that Chad is more than 1,000 kilometers away from the nearest port in Douala, Cameroon. That means the little it produces, oil, livestock, small amounts of grain, has to cross deserts, poor roads, and slow borders just to reach the ocean. And everything it needs to import: refined fuel, machinery parts, medicine, even basic food, makes the journey in reverse. Off the ship, through another country's customs, along bad roads, until it finally reaches the capital in Chad. Geography is not just the background, it is the main story. And that's why the cost of being in the wrong place on the map weighs on every family, every business, every meal. Geographies plus politics equals cost. Geography is already heavy enough, but there's another weight we can't ignore. The human factor: political instability, coups, endless bureaucracy, slow borders. All of that multiplies the effect of distance. And when a country depends on a neighbor's port, any crisis outside its borders becomes a crisis inside. A strike, a new tariff, a temporary blockade. It all turns into extra costs for those stuck in the middle of the map. And in the end, you know how it goes. This bill never stops at the border. It comes back home, into the local market, into the price of bread, into the cost of fuel. It always falls back on the people, how people live in Chad. So how do people actually live here? For most, life still means the countryside. Small subsistence plots of sorghum and millet, just enough to keep the family going. Herding livestock is also part of daily life. Long journeys across dry lands. Chasing pasture, fleeing drought. In the cities, it's the informal economy that rules. Small shops, improvised workshops, motorcycle taxis. Jobs that keep the wheel turning. But without stability, without predictability, and oil. Yes, it brings revenue to the government, but it doesn't create jobs for all. And when the oil price falls, the whole economy stumbles. It's as if people work hard, but always on shifting ground, never knowing when it will give way. What it means to have no port having two coasts is like playing with two cards up your sleeve. Having one coast leaves you vulnerable, but having none is like playing with no cards at all. Without a port, Every product that enters or leaves pays an invisible toll, the toll of distance, of borders, of bureaucracy. It's like plugging everything into an extension cord, from bread to gasoline. Yes, it works, but the cost is always higher. That's how geography turns into something real, something you can touch, and the prices people pay every single day. Possible ways forward, some might say? Then the solution is in the air. Airports can shorten the distance between Chad and the world. But here's the problem. Planes carry little, and they cost a lot. A container that crosses the ocean by ship for weeks can cost 10 times more if it flies. For expensive and light products like electronics or medicine, air freight can work. But for food, fuel, or machinery, it's impossible. That's why the most realistic path is still on the ground. Better roads, hail corridors, and agreements that make borders faster. It's not quick, and it's not cheap. But without that, the country remains isolated. And of course, there's what already exists inside. Sun, livestock, small local industries. Maybe Chad's future is not about competing with China or the United States, but about building solid regional trade where every kilometer saved is already a victory. Destiny no é igual a sempre. Chad reminds the world of an uncomfortable truth. In global trade, the dress still matters, but destiny is not a life sentence. External aid can ease the burden for a while, but it won't be enough. The country also needs to help itself with stability, with small steps in logistics, with regional integration, and by valuing what it already has. Geography can set limits, but it doesn't forbid progress. And perhaps Chad's future depends on this, turning every hard-won kilometer into an opportunity. Because in the end, the map doesn't have to be a prison. It can be just a starting point. If this story made you see the map in a different way, leave a like, drop a comment, and share this video. It helps this message reach more people, especially those who never thought that a port can change an entire country.